So this here is a 2012 Honda CB125E, and it's been the hardest bike I've ever had to do a review on. Now I looked at a few reviews on YouTube, and a lot of them were very critical about how slow this bike was. And it got to a stage where I thought, well, maybe you're not using this in its right environment. It's definitely not built for motorways, and expecting it to constantly hold speeds of 100, even anything above 80, I don't think is fair, and it's not what this bike was designed for. I mean, it's a simple carby-fed, air-cooled 125cc 4-stroke motor, so you're not getting major power out of it. I think this one is 7.6 kilowatts. And with my 115 kilo frame on it, I don't expect miracles. In saying that, people's experience on how slow it actually is are well founded, and I found the same. I've been riding this for the last month, to and from work, and using it as a general commuter. And to be honest, this does nothing extremely well. I mean, it's not. Compared to the Laro, it wasn't as fun to ride as the Laro. This is your basic bog stock, get you where you need to go, to and from point A, point B, no frills motorcycle. And that's hard for motorcycles, because motorcycles are generally bought on emotion, and they're generally not bought for practicality. And if you were buying a bike for practicality, cheap to run, this would do well. But in all honesty, there are others that are better out there. So we'll have a look at what it's like to ride. So there's no denying the bike is slow. Like, that just goes without saying. And Honda, really, a tacho would have been so much better. You know, charges the extra 50 to 100 bucks for a tacho. It would have just given the rider a bit more indication of what it's actually revving at. Actually, there's nothing fast about this bike at all, like, if we're honest, but it's not designed for that. It's designed for short inner city runs, you know, instead of your urban or more outdoor. Anything over 80 k's, and this bike will definitely struggle. But what you'll find is, due to this lack of acceleration, it'll definitely help you with your planning of corners and coming up to intersections. You won't just jump on the brakes. You'll find you'll be gliding up, and when you go around roundabouts or around a bend, you're looking ahead to see, yes, do I actually need to slow down or stop unnecessarily? Because any loss of momentum on one of these is just and as we've said, it's slow, so if you lose momentum, it's slow getting it back. So seating position, as you know, I'm fairly tall. I'm 6'4" or 192 centimeters, and I fit quite well on it. The knees aren't too uncomfortable under the tank. You normally find you're riding here anyway. I don't feel overly crunched up on it. Don't get me wrong. It's not a big bike, but it's big enough to act as a basic commuter. But yes, the only time you'll feel like a MotoGP rider on this thing is, well, we'll have to go back in time to when they went from 1000cc to 800cc, and an observation the riders made, they said the 800s you had to try to carry a better corner speed, and that's exactly what you got to do on this thing. So you try not to lose any momentum, or it just takes forever to get it back. And this is what it's designed for. You know, up to 60 k's it's fine, 70's okay, 80, that's when you start to see it struggle. And anything above 80, well, if that's what you're doing on a regular basis, this is just not the bike for you. What it is good for, in tight circles, you can actually turn quite sharp. Something you can't do on a sports bike. Like I said, this bike, it'll have you looking around corners, definitely planning the angle you go around and how fast you go around corners, because you just don't want to lose any of that sweet momentum. Is it fun? No, not really. It's just a workhorse. It's a bike you use to get you to and from work, or to and from wherever you need to go, with the minimum of fuss and the minimum. It's one of the cheapest ways of doing so. All right. As I said, it's a very maneuverable bike and quite simple. And that's part of its charm. Now, it's not going to be the bike you take out on the, go away riding with your mates on the weekend and stuff like that. That was never its design. And it's well documented just how slow this is, and that is absolutely true. But saying that it's slow, you got to remember it's only a little 125 4-stroke air-cooled and carburetor-fed motorcycle. With tiny little brakes and a drum brake rear. So no, this is no performance animal. It's a willing little bike that will happily work its way up to about 80 k's without too much of a drama. Much easier going downhill to achieve the 80, and if you're not paying attention, it will sneak back down to 70 k's. It's no use flogging this thing. As you can see, I've just opened up the acceleration, opened up the throttle, and there was no real noticeable surge in acceleration. And that's where you really need to be on your game with this bike. You need to be looking ahead, planning ahead, making sure you don't lose momentum, unnecessarily lose momentum. Now you can lane filter on this quite easily, but just be aware the lack of acceleration can sometimes. You better pick the cars you're filtering in front of. If you filter in front of something with a half decent motor, you're going to hold them up. So the two accessories I'd get is a top box. Doesn't matter what brand, but just make sure it's big enough to be able to accommodate your helmet. And the other was just a phone mount, just because of today. Now I've seen you guys put a performance exhaust on this, do things to the motor. Yep, so but that's not really what this bike's for, being such a simple commuter. So on the maintenance side, every 4,000 kilometres you've got to change the oil and clean the strainer. Now it's not a big task, it's just taking the side cover off, and I'll put a link to how it's done. This bike really lends itself to the home mechanic. There is nothing that you couldn't do if you have the basic tools and the right attitude and just a little bit of skill. And I'm not going to say anyone can do it. Not all of us are comfortable using tools. But probably every 12,000 k's, the major service when you do the valve clearances, that's when I'd take it to a mechanic, and it'd be money well spent. Ideally, these bikes aren't going to rack up a heap of kilometres if you're just using it to commute a few k's each day. If you average 100 kilometres a week, or even 200 kilometres a week, that's 4,000 to 8,000 kilometres. So every 15 to 18 months is when you'd be doing a major service on it. So that pretty much sums it up. It's a bike that is not inspiring to ride. I wouldn't call it fun. It will get you from point A to point B, providing you don't have to do speeds of over 80 kilometres an hour. And really, it's not a bike you could recommend with your heart. But would I keep this one? Well, I've got no desire to sell it. I just run it to and from work. When you're getting mileage of 30 to 35 kilometres a litre, that plays a bit of a part in it. There's three types of people that would own this. Couriers, a lot of couriers bought this bike a few years back, but it's since lost a bit of momentum, and they're going more to a scooter style bike, because scooter's got more carrying capacity, more places you can store things. Learners, but again, they will outgrow that. They outgrow these bikes quite quickly, as most people do. And the third person is someone like myself that just wants to use the bike as a get to and from places and just as efficiently as possible. And this bike ticks the box in that regard. The bikes to really avoid are the ones that have been abused by the couriers, learners, and people like myself. And what I mean by that is, if you buy a second-hand one of these, you can pick them up fairly cheap, but it won't be cheap if it hasn't been serviced or looked after properly. And what I mean by that is, at least have them show every time it's done 12,000 kilometers, make sure it's had its major service done. That's valve clearances, the oil strainer checked, so the oil strainer replaced, and the brakes checked, things like that. Even the front forks, they all copper hammering because they're so basic, and if it's carrying quite a bit of a load, they will wear down over time. Like I said, I'm in no rush to sell it. I'm quite happy just using it as my little errand, especially since I've had the top box installed on the back. It's made this bike far more practical. So a bike like this is something you get purely and simply just to commute on. There's really nothing exciting about it, but it does the job. It's a very basic design. It's hard to recommend this bike to people, yet I don't mind riding it, especially if you're just going to the shops, or you're ducking up to a post office, or you're just doing some basic shopping. It's great, but would it be something, if I needed a bike just to do that, I could quite easily get a scooter that would have a top box and far more storage. The Honda CB125E is a very cheap bike, very simple. Don't expect it to be a performance animal. Enjoy the fuel economy, and I believe this bike will serve you well for a very long time. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. It probably didn't really help you out making a decision whether you want one of these or not. My opinion is, if you just want something basic to get to and from work, and a second-hand one comes up at a decent price, good service history, jump on it. It will disappoint you from an enjoyment side, but it won't disappoint you on how simple and easy it is to commute on, and pretty much that's what these bikes were designed for. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next vid.